He froze the moment the visitor's hand moved. Nobody else noticed the silent plea, but the shy intern did. With trembling fingers, he signed back, and the room stopped breathing. What he didn't know was that the CEO stood only a few feet away, watching every motion. The lobby was crowded that morning, filled with impatient footsteps and the restless hum of conversations. Yet, at the far end, silence was louder than any noise. A tall man in a worn gray coat entered, his eyes searching but his ears closed to the chaos around him. He was deaf, navigating the world with sight alone, and already the front desk staff looked restless, annoyed by his quiet struggle. The receptionist's sigh carried a judgment sharper than words. Papers shuffled louder than necessary. A couple of bystanders exchanged knowing glances, then turned away, unwilling to step in. That silence, the silence of bystanders, was the heaviest sound in the room. At that moment, a shy intern named Marcus stood near the entrance. He was young, unsure of himself, carrying files as if they were shields against the world's weight. His skin glistened slightly from nerves, his hands trembling whenever anyone looked his way. People rarely noticed him. That was the comfort of being invisible. But invisibility has a way of cracking in moments that matter most. The visitor raised his hands, signing with urgency, trying to ask a simple question. But the receptionist shook her head. She didn't understand. Instead of patience, her expression hardened into irritation, as though his silence was an inconvenience. That subtle cruelty, that dismissive wave of the hand, pierced Marcus deeper than anyone realized, for he understood that silence. He had lived with it his entire life. Marcus's late grandmother had been deaf. He remembered sitting by her side as a boy, learning the graceful language of hands, learning that silence was not emptiness, but another kind of voice. Those evenings carried the smell of fresh bread cooling on the kitchen table, the flicker of candlelight against her weathered face, and the slow rhythm of her hands teaching him the alphabet of dignity. The world, she once signed to him, will often refuse to listen. But you learn to see. Those words now returned to him like a heartbeat. And so, Marcus lowered the files he clutched, stepped forward, and with hesitant courage, lifted his trembling hands. He began to sign. The visitor's eyes widened, relief flooding across his face. The stiffness in his shoulders melted into gratitude. Their conversation was silent, but alive, the air between them filled with invisible threads of connection. Marcus asked how he could help. The man explained he was here for a meeting but had lost his way. Marcus guided him through gestures, patient, steady, and unshaken by the impatient glares from the front desk. Unseen by both of them, behind a column at the edge of the lobby, the CEO of the company stood watching. Tall, composed, her eyes sharp yet unreadable, she had arrived earlier than expected. She saw not just the conversation, but the way others had turned away, the way the receptionist dismissed the visitor, the way silence had almost crushed dignity, until Marcus broke it open with kindness. The CEO's jaw tightened, but her gaze softened when it rested on Marcus. She saw the nervous hands, the awkward posture, the shy boy who had just carried the weight of humanity without seeking applause. Silent strength is the loudest kind, she thought. The visitor, now reassured, clasped Marcus's hand in gratitude. No words were spoken, but the gesture was louder than any thank you. Around them, a few witnesses lowered their heads, ashamed at their own silence. The receptionist flushed, shifting uncomfortably, suddenly small in her own chair. The CEO finally stepped forward. Her presence hushed the room, though Marcus didn't notice at first. He was too focused on making sure the visitor understood the directions. His face carried no pride, only concentration, as though this act of compassion was the most natural thing in the world. When Marcus finally looked up, he saw her. His heart stumbled in his chest. Fear flickered in his eyes. Had he overstepped? Was this the moment his internship ended? But the CEO's gaze held no anger, only gravity. She nodded once toward him, a gesture heavy with unspoken words. Then, turning toward the receptionist, her tone was calm but cutting. Respect is never optional. The silence that followed was heavier than any scolding. It was the kind of silence that demanded reflection. The visitor, sensing the weight of the moment, signed one last phrase to Marcus before leaving. It was simple. It was eternal. "Thank you for seeing me." Marcus's throat tightened, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. He nodded, unable to form words. Yet, in that silence, the message was clear. Honor needs no voice to be heard. Later, whispers spread through the building. The shy intern who had always stood in shadows was now remembered for the light he carried. Not through speeches, not through authority, but through the quiet power of choosing dignity when no one else did. And in the CEO's office, far above the noise of the lobby, she repeated a line Marcus's grandmother might have spoken: "True leadership begins with those who act, even when no one is watching." And sometimes, the ones who believe they are unseen are the ones who change everything. The story did not end with applause, nor did Marcus seek it. His strength was never about recognition. It was about honoring a man's dignity in a moment when the world tried to strip it away. The lobby, once heavy with impatience, now held a memory that would not fade. The receptionist learned humility. The bystanders carried a quiet lesson home, and Marcus discovered that silence, when used with compassion, could echo louder than the loudest voice. Respect is not given because of titles. It is given because of humanity. In every crowded room, in every rushed day, there are silent battles we cannot see. And sometimes it takes one quiet, trembling hand to remind the world what dignity looks like. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe in stories that honor silent heroes, subscribe for more. Because sometimes, the quietest voices leave the loudest echoes.